Hey, Tom.
Hey, Jason.
We have a guest today.
I think we do.
I think we do. Eric Glesser is joining us from the Spyderco factory. Hi, Eric.
Hi. Nice to see you guys again.
Absolutely, sir. It's been a little bit, but good to see you again.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Eric obviously has stepped up his videography game since last episode because now he's looking good. This is going to be a good looking episode because Eric's looking good. That's all that matters.
That's kind of you. It's just a different backdrop with some light, but thank you.
It's a brand new brick wall, but it looks old. You guys did a good job of making it look vintage. I like it.
Yeah, okay. It's cloth.
You gonna pin it?
Oh, it's cloth.
Question. Because I don't want to get backlash during the show, Jason. Should I add everyone in this post?
Yes.
Okay. Doing
Why
it.
not? There's a feature in Facebook, Eric, where you can notify everyone in the group at one time that something's happening.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's abused a lot by some of the smaller knife groups. So most people hate that with a passion. So you have to be very careful when you do it. But I think you being with us is
I can't do it on a live. It won't let me. It's
okay.
It's okay. Right. It won't be a distraction now. So
they might still get the notification anyway.
It's true.
Everyone's saying hi, Eric. I'm getting lots of comments here.
Hey.
Hey.
Well, thanks everybody who joined.
Absolutely. People have been talking about this for a bit. So you are an annual guest. This is your third appearance now, and since last January, I think you were on, and now I feel like your understanding of what the club is has come a very long way. And I think it's going to be cool to have this conversation now that you know a lot better what we do and you see all our crazy members come up to you at knife shows and bug you.
Yeah, it's an amazing group of people. I enjoy talking to everybody I've met from this group. It's a knife knowledgeable, passionate group. It's fun to talk to. Yeah.
So Eric, I think probably the biggest Spyderco thing to talk about right now is the factory. How are things going with the factory expansion?
Oh, gee, good question, I guess. Factory expansion's going well. We don't advertise that a lot. And so if you come to our store, you probably look out back and you see the construction. For us, it's going well. Anybody that's dealt with construction probably knows there's always delays and challenges, costs, things like that. One of the things that we hit was the area that we're in was a coal mining area. And we found coal mines under where we were trying to put the building.
Oh my God.
So we had to rework the ground and fill the mines, and it delayed the project tremendously, added more money. But we're moving forward. We're hoping to be done this, summer, maybe September, and continue to grow our capacity. We've been growing our capacity all along. We kind of think of it as letting our belt out after Thanksgiving. And so, we're still building more, but we're out of space. We literally put somebody in a closet recently as an office. But we're getting closer every day. We have some beautiful new equipment that's staged and ready to go. The equipment's going to give us some new capabilities in our manufacturing. We also have about a dozen knives that are already engineered and ready to go as well. So over the next couple of years, when the new machines get online, we should not only be able to increase our capacity, but bring some really cool stuff to the market. I'm really excited about some of the new upcoming products.
That's amazing. The coal mine situation sounds crazy. Like that how do you can't even plan for that, right? It just somebody comes at you and goes, you're not going to believe this.
Right.
Construction, like that gave me an anxiety attack when you said that, because I quit being a general contractor a year ago, and I'm like, that would suck. I'd just be like, pack it up today, not a good day.
I think they said it was big enough to swallow a crane. So we had to, we started doing core samples, and they found it, and then we had to fill it with some sort of grout or rock or something. And so it first they drilled down, and then they filled it up, and then they reworked the ground above it. But it is solid ground now. It's a beautiful building. Honestly, we're expanding our distribution as well. Getting as far as our warehouse, we believe, and I guess we'll see over time, that getting that product to the end line user is always changing. and we want to be the most effective at doing that. It sometimes shipping stuff back and forth the country a few times not only adds cost to the product, but it slows it down. And so, whether it's the manufacturing, the distribution, we increased our research and development department, so we brought in some new equipment for that. And really, there's some, there's some cool stuff going on here.
Did you use MagnaCut in the fabrication of the building?
Yeah. No, we didn't. But we have a lot of MagnaCut, I tell you what.
No rust on the building, just
nice,
right. Clean stainless.
Yeah, and if you've been to our building, we have this very large window in the factory that's a Spyderco bug. It's a big round window, and it faces the east side. And on the opposite end of the factory, we're installing another window. And so you'll have one window on one side of the building, one window on the other side. It's going to give it a really dynamic look when you're inside as well.
That's awesome.
But yeah, we got bringing in a new laser. Excited about that. Some new machining equipment, and I can't disclose everything, but there's some cool stuff coming in.
It sounds like, knowing you for a little bit, you're probably pretty involved in the R&D and the steel testing and all of that stuff. You don't just let someone else run around and do that stuff?
Yeah, well, somebody else does most of the testing, physically does it, but I'm certainly involved in all the results. In the R&D department, I'm involved in all aspects. Really, with the company, I'm involved in all aspects, from the concept in your head to the end line user and every department in the middle.
Speaking of R&D and new models and things like that, last summer we got the chance to see the Military 2, and you won an award for Production Knife of the Year for the Military 2. And I think everybody in the group that's watching right now is excited about getting their hands on one. How close are we to getting one?
We're pretty close. I think we're going to start finishing up all the components this month. We should be assembling this month, early next month. We have a fairly generous amount of knives going through right now. One of the things I'm so far extremely excited about is the lockup on the compression on that one. The detent we worked on a little bit. When it comes to a ball bearing detent, what size is the ball bearing? How strong is the spring? What kind of hole do you use within the blade? That action across the blade when you're opening and closing it. Does it have any pullback on the ball detent? I believe it's the greatest detent that we've ever made as far as a ball detent with that big blade. But I'll know more after we get done with our batch. But so far, our pilot run is just going wonderful. It's looking really good.
That's terrific. I know recently the St. Nick's Knives exclusive came out, and when this came out, Tom and I were really excited about how quickly it sold and how popular it became, because this has been the first exclusive in a long time for this series, and it sort of restored the excitement about getting the Millie 2, and everybody who got it in their hands was just like, oh, look at this, look how capable this knife is. And
it was like everyone had passed on the Military for so long because it's a big knife and whatever, and it was like the last hurrah of like, here's your chance to get a really, really cool one. It sold out in like a few minutes, just a few minutes. It was crazy.
It wasn't long.
No.
Yeah, I think the size intimidates some people, but I think once you get it in your pocket and you start carrying it, it's so lightweight, and I feel designed with its thicknesses and its bevels and its construction that it makes it a breeze to carry. Also, with the new one, we have more Millies coming. So in Reveal 2, which the sales department, I'm probably talking out of turn a little bit, but we'll be bringing more variations to the market. You'll have your Spy 27s and your 110Vs and your all blacks and things like that. And then, I know that there's already a number of exclusives that are on in the works as well.
That's wonderful. Facebook user says the Millie is the perfect design. How about that?
Thanks.
And some other Facebook user says hello from across the pond. So we got somebody from the UK watching. We've got France in the house.
Right on. We're expanding some of our slip joints for you UK folks too. We're gonna be bringing some more UK PKs to the market with some other steels and scales. And I guess I'm talking to you guys, so I'm giving away stuff. But there's a really neat Mike Reed we're working on as well for you Brits. So.
Oh, nice.
very appreciated. We have a lot of international members. It's shocking how many people are from out of the country. So it's cool to see stuff that's, people can buy elsewhere, because there's nothing wrong with slip joint. I love UK PTK. I love the Urban. They're great little knives. This doesn't have a lock. It's great though.
Yeah. Also, now I'm talking about the slip joints in the Brit market, but the new Mike Reed right now that we're doing has a patent on it. It's a new mechanism that really hasn't been done before. And it's one of my most exciting knives that we're working on.
Wow.
And so it won't be on the market for at least, 6 months to a year. But in the world of slip joints, it takes it to a whole new level.
That's awesome.
Just had a member from Germany join.
Right on. Welcome from Germany.
Here's a good question from one of the viewers about the K390. Tom and I talked about it earlier about bringing that up, but we're seeing such an incredible rollout of K390 out of Seki City, and everybody who gets their hands on K390 loves it. And we wanted to get your take on the rollout of it. How's it going, and what are your thoughts on the steel?
It's one of my favorite. Naturally, I like all the steels. So whenever you ask me about a steel, I'm so it's one of my favorites. But it's one of my favorites. It's a very hard steel. It gets a beautiful patina on it. I think one of the disadvantages to K390 is that a lot of people don't use it. It's hard to work with, it has its challenges, and so people don't know a lot about it. I guess another challenge with K392 is that it hasn't been ever used for anything famous, if you will. Like Maximet was used for the rollers of mill plants, and people can picture that. But with K390, it's mostly made for tooling and different aspects of manufacturing. And so, there's never been something that people go, oh, I know what that's been used for. I can attach, use to it. But for knives, it's just an absolute pleasure to work with. ZDP 189 is not easy to get anymore, and when you do get it, oftentimes it's laminated. ZDP 189 is still one of my favorites, though it's 20 years old now. And in that world, we want to have a super hard steel coming out of Japan, and K390 fits that bill. And the Japanese do a wonderful job working on it. That's why so much of it is Japanese product. But it is one of my favorites. I know I've said this before in the public, but when it comes to things like serrations, tip strength, K390 is strong. You can really work that knife, unlike knives that get that hard. With its high RC, you think about snapping tips and breaking it. And K390 just takes a beating, unlike anything that gets that hard that I know of.
We got to throw a sprint run idea for you. Just throwing it out there, planting the seed. Military 2 K390 serrated.
That might be neat. Yeah.
It'd be like a saw.
Yeah. I would imagine at some point we might do some K390 in the US.
That would never need to be sharpened, Tom. It would never go dull.
It would be a nice piece. But right now there's no plans for K390 in the US, but never say never, I guess.
Well, you guys, you did some runs of it. Probably no more. So this is K390 that what Bento did a couple years ago.
Yep.
So these are hard to get. They're well sought after now.
Yeah, it's been done. I want to say I can't remember if the Japanese or we did the mule team, but yeah, we have worked it in the US. But right now, because of the 15V and the Spy 27 and the Maximet and the MagnaCut and so many of the different steels that we're working on in the US, we're kind of letting the Japanese take the lead on that one.
Will we continue to see more and more of the Japanese models in K390? There's a couple questions in the comments about like a stretch XL2 lightweight. Yep. That one hasn't been done yet, but there's many others.
That one might even be in the works. I can't remember. Awesome. But having that said, K390 is not going away. That's something that my gut tells me we'll have in Japan for years to come. But again, never say never in the sense that, what's going to be next, K98 or K398. I mean, and so, I'll jump ship for something better usually. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. But right now we're planning to keep K398 for a while.
Yeah. From what I've read on
or K390, sorry.
Yeah, K390. From what I've read on Knife Steel Nerds and from Sean Houston, they both really like that steel a lot for its combination of toughness and edge retention.
Yep, one of my favorites. It is.
Is it true that ZDP 189 is no longer being made? That's a rumor that we hear a lot, but we can't. No one's ever been able to find it like written anywhere.
No, I guess. From my understanding, there's still laminate being made. I'm not sure about solid anymore. I might be talking out of turn a little bit but from my memory right now, it was planned that ZDP 189 would likely go away completely. A lot of that is because in Japan, there's been, some different steel foundries that have hooked up, some acquisitions, if you will, capacity constraints, some of the other challenges. And so they were looking at sunsetting or discontinuing ZDP 189. But from my understanding, they found some room for it, particularly in the laminates. And so I think it'll be around for a little while, but I think it is on the edge of maybe going away. But, as you probably know, as markets come and go and foundries change, some steels, go away and come back, and it all kind of depends. But it is hard.
X45 and K390 at one point, both those steels were widely rumored, like, oh, they're done. They're never making another Rex 45 knife. Then you guys came out with 11 of them.
Sometimes, too, we buy a bunch of it, and then we just peel it out for a few years. Right now I'm sitting on steels that, I've been sitting on for years that I haven't even brought to the market. And so there might be some other steels that we've been sitting on. I might try to pump into the market over the next year or two.
I was looking at some technical specs once for 9V. It's a crucible steel, 9V. Yep. And the toughness on their data sheet was ridiculous. It was like, I don't know, 4 times taller on the graph than 4V. It was just an insanely tough steel. And then the hardness looked like it was low, like 55 or something.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you had ever worked with that, or is that something you've looked at all?
It's been a long time. From my memory, we've never produced 9V as a production piece.
No.
For us, edge retention is much more important than toughness. That's one of the reasons we kind of graduated away from 3V to 4V, is that we felt 4V gave you a little bit better edge retention. The
right.
3V is still very good. And don't be surprised if we do a 3V batch, because I know that there's some steel in the warehouse. But having that said, we shied away from 9V purely because of the edge retention factor. 10V has been a pleasure. We did some of that. I think the first knife we did that on was the K2 by Farad. That was an absolute joy to do. And now we're on to 15V, like with Sean. But 9V is a unique one. The V series of steels is unique. It's a nice offering,
The K2 is a personal favorite of mine. I like to.
Oh wow! Right out of that's amazing. You just
I like to always like to show it off next to a man bug, maybe something.
Wow, you have great size. That is a beautiful. I haven't seen one of those in a while. One of my favorite parts about the K2 is that rounded spine on the blade. That was in the early days when not a lot of people were doing it. Now people like Lion Steel, but do it on just about everything. But that was one of my favorite features of that knife back then.
I don't think I've ever carried a bigger knife in my pocket than this thing, and it's so satisfying to pull it out and use it to cut something, because it's so I don't know, it's just an enormous knife, and I don't know, it's the blade shape couldn't be better. I love it.
Yeah, with the full flat grind and the open construction too, because there's no backspacer in it. You know, it's just light and big and strong and beautiful. It is.
Well,
it's like anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Whoever wrote that little anecdote was talking about the K2.
Well, in the comments, we must have Triple B joining us. Sean Houston is here in the house, so he's supervising all the steel talk. So if we make a mess up, he'll clear it up.
Yeah, and I'm not a steel expert, guys. When I listen to Laren Thomas and Steel Nerds, I realize how much I don't know. I do know a fairly well amount, and I'll try to answer the best, but I'm certainly not a metallurgist or steel expert.
Tom mentioned to me yesterday and a couple days prior about 15V. He's had a lot of experience with sharpening it. I think he sharpens half a dozen knives now with 15V, and he was talking about how nice it is to sharpen, like what a pleasure it is to sharpen. We've noticed some steels are really fussy or hard to sharpen, and other steels are just easier. And we find that 15V is easier.
So what surprised me about this steel is, like, some steels are harder than other steels, so they take longer to sharpen. Like Maximate, I have sharpened a lot of Maximate. It's not fun. It just takes time and takes really good stones. It's not bad. Anyone, you can do it, but it just takes time. 15V is so fast, but the crazy thing is, it's the way the burr forms for me. I don't know if it's the stones or the steel or the combination, but it's a very obvious burr. It's very small. It's very crispy, and it happens so fast and easy. And then it polishes amazing, and then it cuts amazing. It's just a really cool steel. And sharpening it, I've never had a steel where I'm like, I see one come in, I'm like looking forward to sharpening it because it's a cool steel. And this steel is really fun to sharpen.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Maximet's about as hard as it gets. It's a great example for being tough to sharpen. In the old days, you're always thinking about what's your Rockwell, and you're thinking about the sharpening because, gee, if it's a really high Rockwell, it's going to be really hard to sharpen. And for a lot of people, the resharpenability of the knife is incredibly important. But what we're finding, recently, and I feel like over the last 5 and 10 years, it continues to be a renaissance in steel. But RC isn't always equated to edge retention and toughness and ability to sharpen. And so 15V, it's just found a really unique sweet spot where you go to resharpen it and you polish it, and you would think, gee, it's not going to perform as well as it does. And it just performs in its edge retention and cutting, amazingly. And then you go to resharpen it and say, gee, that shouldn't be. So, 15V has been a real pleasure. A Magnicut is in that kind of boat where you look at the RC and you look at the chemistry and you start working with it and you say, gee, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And it does. And so, I would find that 15V is, especially for the mirror polish, the chipping out, when you get to a knife that sharp, you start getting to a really thin edge and you start putting mirror on it, it starts chipping out. And with Sean, he was able to get that just right where it just matched all worlds. It's a pleasure.
One example I can think of that not necessarily a high hardness steel, but is still fussy to sharpen is S90V. I find that one is just tricky to me. Like, for some reason, it doesn't burr the same as other steels. That more than anything, that's what bugs me is I'm chasing the burr, trying to get the burr, and I'm like, man, where is it? Where is it?
I just assume it's there. I stopped trying. It's got to be there. I've been doing this for a half hour.
But
so
the hardness on S90V generally isn't anywhere near like 15, whereas 15 is easier to sharpen. So sometimes it must
that
just
mirror
be that
edge is tough too on S90V. Though it has a lot of chrome, it's surprising how much chrome it has.
Right.
S90V has its challenges too, for sure.
I like the steel. I like cutting with it. I like that it never gets dull. But putting the edge on it tends to me, that one's just tougher to sharpen than some of the others.
It is definitely one of my favorites, though. Right now we're offering S30V, S45VN, S35VN, all 3 grades. All 3 grades are incredibly comparable to each other, though they all bring a little bit of pros and cons to themselves. I would imagine one of the things we talk about, though, is what's the next step beyond 30V, 45VN, and 35VN, and honestly, S90V is up there. If we had to start graduating to a new steel away from those 3, I would imagine 20CV and S90V would be among the ones I would go towards. But S90V is one of my very favorites. I would put it in my top 10.
Another steel that I like to sharpen is Spy 27.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That steel is wonderful to sharpen, and it also strops really well. It's easy to maintain an edge on it.
I agree. For balance of steel, like toughness, edge retention, corrosion resistance, ability to resharpen, ability to fabricate it, that perfect balance, if you will. Spy 27 brings a lot of that. A lot of the other steels we're talking about, in one area, they just shoot above everybody else. But with Spy 27, it's I feel one of our most balanced steels. Like BG10, incredibly balanced steel. I would put Spy 27 in there like a very balanced steel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Looking at my notes, Tom. You got anything?
Yeah. So here's my Spy 27 Para 3. This was a Para 3 lightweight, which is the only way you can get Spy 27. But I wanted to show these off to you because these guys need some extra attention and loving. These are from Applied Weapons Tech, these scales. And this converts a Para 3 lightweight into an aluminum knife. And it feels like it was made as a solid aluminum metal knife. It's really cool.
And it has that single lock bar.
It has a single lock bar, and it doesn't have a liner because it doesn't have a liner on the other side. So people are doing some pretty cool stuff with your knives. People are creating some different stuff, and these guys have gotten super popular over the last year. But
yeah, we're really working in our quality assurance department and engineering areas to try to be consistent in the manufacturing as much as possible from batch to batch for the aftermarket folks as well too. And so CQI is incredibly important around here. Constant quality improvement. It's always been, improve it where we can. And when we can, it doesn't matter if for a catalog change or not. But nowadays we certainly have to consider the aftermarket in that as well. And so, I really appreciate the aftermarket and what everybody is doing. Thank you to everybody that has the enthusiasm and they do what they do. Our warranty and repair our policies have changed so that we can try to service these knives better. Our engineering is focusing more on it so that we can support that. Like one of the questions I get all the time is, why don't you offer all these different clips? I can go online and buy such a better clip than you already offer. And really, I'm not, first of all, I do think our clips are good, but I'm also not trying to steal the market from these aftermarket folks. Some of these guys are doing a wonderful job with their aftermarket clips, and I want to help support that as well. And so that's one of the reasons we don't come out with 20 different aftermarket clip accessories, because there are a lot of people already servicing that. Sorry, I get going, so I'll slow down there.
No,
not at all.
That's what we wanted. I guess I wanted to make everyone aware of. Like, that's some makers, particularly one in Idaho, doesn't like when people modify their knives at all. And I think it's really cool. I watched a video a long time ago of walking around Spyderco offices, and everyone was showing their knives, and not a single one of them was original. They're all like different scales or ground or acid washed or whatever. Everyone had a cool knife. It was really neat to see that, like, you guys are supportive of that.
Yeah, and then you start looking about what they did. Like, oh, this is still out of the box. You didn't do anything to it yet. It's a pleasure. I'm really enjoying what people are doing, and some of it, over time translates towards production, especially in the exclusive world. I look at fat carbon and some of the things that we've worked on. The first place we found fat carbon was people were adding it to their aftermarket knives. We bought a piece. We went, wow, this is amazing. We started doing some batches for Smoky Mountain. And then the next thing I know is every composites maker in the world is trying to face fat carbon. They'll say, hey, look at our new carbon fiber. And I'll say, wow, looks just like fat carbon. And so, the aftermarket itself is pushing the entire industry forward as well. It's a great synthesis, a balance, a symbiotic relationship, if you will. It's just been a pleasure.
Thank you for the clip conversation, because one of the top most frequently asked things in the group is, how come Spyderco doesn't do deep carry? How come Spyderco doesn't offer deep carry? And you put it perfectly. And it's something that Tom and I knew. We knew the answer before you said it, but having you say it really solidifies it, I think. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with your clip. Your clip is excellent. I've never bent one. They're awesome. They're durable. They're just the right height to get over your jeans. There's a lot of clearance back here. They don't fall out of your pocket. There's enough room to grab the knife and pull it out of your pocket, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's universal. That can't be understated. It's like, if you're like, why doesn't it have a very specific clip? Because then it'd be specific clip, and then you wouldn't have aftermarket options, and you couldn't just bend one and go, I need another $7 clip from Spyderco. Like, the fact that your guys' clips for the most part are interchangeable is a very big positive.
Yeah, and we wanted to be able to go into some silk slacks or your sweatpants in both fashions, which can be tough. And so, what the material is made out of is incredibly important. How high how high that is for us, we find about 3 millimeters is about perfect. A lot of clips have, the end come down, so you're trying to lift your clip just to get it in your pocket, or the end of the clip is tipped up, so you're scratching your car as you're walking by, or it catches on a tree and it bends and it doesn't spring back. Like in QC, one of the first things we do is they have to tap the knives to make sure they don't make a sound, so that they're touching the surface. And so, there are dozens of different aspects that go into making a proper clip to perform on a Spyderco.
I scratched a grand piano once with a pocket clip.
Yeah, I've heard horrible stories of $250,000 cars that have a scratch down the side from a knife. So
this was an $80,000 Steinway. So.
Yeah,
not a small deal.
We pay attention to that stuff. Or the leather seat. I've heard that too. Gee, I sat down with my knife and my clip poked a hole in my leather seat, and so. Yeah, we're trying to pay attention to the edges, the burrs, all that kind of stuff, so that it's a good clip for you to perform on all different levels.
The crowd wants to know what's in your pocket.
Oh, today I'm carrying a Maximet Para 3. Nice. It's really nothing special as far as usually I have a prototype in my pocket, but we're playing with a slightly different mod on the heat treat of this one. And so I'm playing with the knife to see how I like the heat treat difference.
That's a good reason. That's nothing to shy about Maximet. It's been around, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good steel.
Yeah, one of the things we're doing now is we're just going a lot more. We're paying attention to the heat treats. We're adding more cryo to do to new things, and so the one I'm carrying has a slightly different temper and see it if it's performing like we want it to. But all in all, so far so good. Maximet is an amazing steel, and we're still the only ones that do it.
Speaking of steel, question just popped up in the crowd here. M398. So we have a mule team for M398.
Yeah.
Wondering how that's going.
It's delayed, if you will. I believe we were one of the first production companies to get M398 to the market. We were early on in the buying. We brought it in. We finished our mule team. We got it to production. We delivered it. The mule team that we brought to the market was based off the original data sheets. Any steel that you buy, you receive a data sheet that comes from the foundry. The data sheet can, give you a range of tempers for us, or heat treats, tempers, double tempers, cryos. Every data sheet, though, you can look at and go at it a different way. And so, for all of our steels, we look at our data sheets. We cook it the best we think. We do a testing and to see if our cooking did well. And then we bring it to the market and what we feel is the best off that data sheet. For M398, the first batch we did for the mule team was off the recommendations from the foundry. The production batch that we're doing now, which is the club knife you guys are working with, or that's in the works. Anyways, I don't know how far everybody knows all that, but we're working with Sean Houston, and he did a heat treat that was a little bit outside of the data sheet, which always makes me nervous. He got his to 65. And so he's doing a couple more tests for us to make sure he likes what heat treat he's working on. Right. We're planning on bringing Sean's recommended heat treat to the market, which is outside of the data sheet. It's a little bit harder, but we think it's going to bring better edge retention and toughness. So that has delayed the project, but we are chunking through them. I'm hoping that we're within maybe a couple months from getting that one done. But yes, the heat treat all in all has delayed that project.
We want you to love it as much as we love it. So
I do love it. It's not getting a lot of play in the world right now just because a lot of people aren't using it. But I do think that, 20 CV and M390 and 204P, all three grades are some of my very favorites. And I think that this one, if you are a fan of one of those three steels, which there are many fans of those three steels,
absolutely,
this one is going to be a pleasure.
So, I've seen a lot of M398 come out of Shirogorov and Herman knives, which are made in Poland, I believe. They'll use it quite a bit, and they're not big factories. There's just smaller runs, but and also we've talked earlier about Russian kitchen knives. I'm seeing M398 in kitchen knives. So seems like it has been used in Europe, but now you guys are going to be first in market here in the U.S.
Yeah, it being a European steel, that doesn't surprise me. Oftentimes they're the first ones to even get a piece. But I think we got a piece early on. We also, when we got a piece, we tested it right away. We didn't sit on it too long. We knew that we wanted to go in that direction soon after testing. And then we got the steel right away, and we've just been sitting on it for too long, mostly because of capacity and exclusives and other things. But we are making it. It's chunking through. Got delayed because of the heat treat, but anybody that buys one will be happy that we took the time to do it right.
For those of you who have been purchasing club knives or club coins for the last 2 years, have noticed the little tiger show up on the coins. 2021 had a tiger. 2022 had a bigger tiger. That's not an accident. It's also not an accident that M398 is the chemical compound around the edge of the coin. Like, we've been teasing you guys with this for a couple years now. So you are all watching the show, and you're now hearing this straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. M398. Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Awesome to hear.
It's corrosion resistance, it's toughness, it's edge retention. I mean, it's a real pleasure. I can't say enough about these grades of steels.
I'm excited too. It should be fun. The comments are exploding. So if you guys don't have a club coin yet, you kind of ought to go get one, and they're available at cutleryshop.com. Just search for club coin and you'll find them. If you're out of the United States and you need shipping help, order the coin, have it sent to the club mailbox, and I will personally send it to you. It's about $17 to send it, so no big deal. We can get you a coin.
Hats off to Cutlery Shop too. I love them. Jeff's a personal friend. Hi, Jeff. Yeah, hats off to Cutlery Shop. They're such a pleasure to work with.
Could not be a better partner on this coin. Could not be a better support. I noticed that the tiger's orange, Tom.
That Jeff likes orange. I think he has an orange shirt or two.
I feel like orange. A lot of orange knives at Cutlery Shop.
Yeah, I think we're pretty good at orange too.
Yeah,
if you
are good at orange.
With orange, it's a nice, bright, awesome orange.
Yeah, it's hunting vest orange. It's not like burnt. Well, the burnt orange is definitely different.
Burnt orange is pretty cool too, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, we make some pretty cool orange knives.
You do make cool orange knives. Speaking of orange knives, I just got an Autonomy. That
is so nice.
A few years ago, I got my hands on one and I loved it. And then they've been unavailable forever, and now they've shipped recently. I wonder if you might share a few thoughts about this knife with the group.
Yeah, the one you're holding is H1, and so
it is H1.
Yeah, we make it both in LC200 and H1. They're both designed to be incredibly corrosive resistant. We work with the Coast Guard on those knives, and if you think about an automatic that's corrosive resistant, that alone is a unicorn in a lot of ways. It is just a special thing, but besides the corrosion resistance, that knife, in opinions, everybody has one. I believe it's one of the greatest automatics ever made. For me, I would certainly put it in the top 5 of any automatic I've seen. For reasoning, for one, it's got a lot of spring. I can't imagine how many. I mean, there's been so many automatics through the years that you hit the button and it goes halfway. With this thing, if you hit the button, know that it's going to spring. I've had them actually jump out of people's hands that weren't anticipating it. And for me, I want an automatic that goes whomp. And so it's got a big, beautiful spring in there that shoots that thing open. When you close it, it's a solid close. That blade's not bouncing all over the place. One of the, to take it further, it's an open construction. You think about automatics, how many automatics in the market are completely open construction that you can just rinse out? Honestly, I can't think of any off the top of my head. And the main spring on the button for that is integral with the liner. Most buttons use a coil spring behind the back. When you look at that button, it's an open back on the G10. So if debris gets in the button, it pushes out the back, and you don't have to worry about a spring corroding or falling apart on you. Even the pivot area, we could take apart, replace the spring, and then put the pivot cap back on without disassembling the knife. It's got a large button on it, so if you're wearing gloves, you're not going to be searching for the damn thing. And with its safety, it's a solid safety. It's got multiple patents on it. It's one of the greatest automatics ever made, in my opinion.
Boom.
So yeah, there's some thoughts on it.
There, Eric made a definitive statement about something being the best. Just saying, that doesn't happen often.
I worry about it slipping out of my hands. No, I don't. Look at that grip.
Yep. And then we make one that's black with a point out of LC200N. Yeah, if you're into automatics, it's tough to beat in autonomy. It's one of the greatest.
So are those available right
orange,
now? Though. Is that an old one, or is that available right now as an exclusive?
That's not available as an exclusive to anybody, from my understanding. It is a restricted product, so you have to buy it from somebody that buys and sells restricted products in a legal area.
So these are in stock at Cutlery Shop. Last I checked, they're also in stock at River's Edge Cutlery. Last I checked, they're probably in stock at other dealers too, but I haven't checked them.
Yeah, and the automatic market is really opening up. A lot of states have changed their laws on it, and so it is giving people more of the ability to carry a knife like this. And for some, it's almost a need, a must. For the Coast Guard, if they're floating around trying to save somebody's life and they open their knife, they don't want to be fumbling around trying to open their knife, and so that thing is going to open no matter what. And usually for the Coast Guard, after they save the guy, they just throw the knife away and let the damn thing sink. If you're in some situations, an automatic can be one of your best solutions.
Yep.
Especially with the blunt tip, so you can actually put it into use without destroying whatever you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Think about a rescue situation where maybe you need to free someone from a seatbelt.
Yeah.
It's going to be very easy to get the seatbelt under them and then pop it. With the serrations, you're not going to have to saw this at the seatbelt. You can get that under there, slide it in, pull.
Yeah, I always feel sheep foots and serrations go hand in hand too. To me, a sheep's foot and plain edge always looks a little funny. If you're rescuing somebody, having some teeth, that really makes sure you're going to get through it. And so, I'm a big fan of teeth, particularly on rescue knives.
It's funny you just said sheep's foot. Look. I just eventually pictured one knife that happens to have a hole in the blade that's not a Spyderco. I'm like, yeah, it does look kind of funny.
And we make plain edge sheep's foots too. So same with a reverse S, like the Civilian. When I see a plain edge reverse S, that always looks kind of funny to me too. I think a serrated reverse S is best. And you take a serrated reverse S like a Civilian, and if you actually stretch that thing out, it's probably 6 or 7 inches of cutting length. Serrations really do add more cutting length when you think about it, because you're going in and out of each of those teeth.
We first watching Paula was on the Jacksonville Police Department. I think it was Jacksonville. Sorry, Paula, if I'm getting it wrong. She was a canine officer in Florida, and she said she's cut several seatbelts in her life. Somebody else says they've carried a rescue since '95.
Oh wow.
Long time.
Thanks for the support. Yeah, something like that autonomy goes through seatbelts like butter.
Yeah, I bet. If we could back up for a second to a knife that's one of my favorites, the fluted Millie.
Yeah.
Will we see a return of the fluted Millie too?
Likely no, not in the near future. No. Maybe, for one, the aftermarket is doing a tremendous job on some of this fluted, rounded titanium stuff. But that knife in particular, when you look at the pivot area, which is where the fluting comes from, it's almost like a sun that goes out from the pivot. Yes. And at the pivot area, the fluting is almost gone. It almost goes to a smooth. Yes. And then the flute goes out. It's much easier to create the flute where it's rigid all around the pivot. It's much easier to produce. But when you go to a smooth around the pivot, it's much harder to produce.
Right.
As a kid, my dad was a cabinet maker, and he'd say, a cabinet like this, if you will, is easy to make. A cabinet like that is harder to make. One that's dovetailed is even harder than that. And so when you look at fluting and textures, how you texture it, what depths you use. A lot of people don't notice those things, but when you look at that knife, the way that fluting smooths out at the pivot, it's almost unmatched. Not a lot of people could do that even if they wanted to.
Well, I guess we're just gonna have to ask RG to make some of these for the Millie 2.
Yeah, that's
a work, I guess.
Yeah.
Tom knows a guy.
Yeah. He knows a few guys.
That's right.
But yeah, beautiful piece, but not planned right now. Our production capacities are really making it a challenge for that. We do make the fluted carbon fiber native, and right now that's back ordered, and we do have a batch of that we're working on. If we did do a fluted military 2, it would likely be carbon fiber before it's titanium.
Whoa, that would be beautiful.
Not complaining.
No, let's take that all day.
Yeah. This is what I tell everyone. Speaking of this knife, everyone has asked me at some point, it seems like, if I had to, especially when I started selling off some of my collection, like if I sold everything, what one knife, you only have one knife, what would you keep? This would be the one knife, I think. I think this is the most versatile knife that exists in a high performance capacity. Everything about this knife is perfect for I work in construction, I could take this on a job site. I can also put this in my pocket and get married. It's a classy knife. It's got S90V. It's got carbon fiber. This thing, such a good knife. It's simple. And I think a lot of people get it at first. And you're like, well, there's nothing to it. But then you open it and it snaps open. And it's your guys' back lock is so satisfying. And it just works. So this is my one knife to only have one knife.
I think you have great taste. If I only had one knife and I was stuck on an island, a back lock is tough to beat. It will just go forever. One of our R&D department was working on a knife and they were trying to get 200,000 cycles out of it. And I think that was 5 openings every day for 90 plus years. And I was thinking, gee, this is a little overkill.
How many times I flick my pair of 3 every week?
To me, 50,000 is a pretty good number. But some of these tests, they're cycling up 200,000 pieces, and a backlock is able to do that. And so, if I was stuck with a knife forever, a backlock would be up there.
Wow.
This is a word that I like that's becoming adopted. Knifing. That knife is made for knifing.
I like that.
Yeah. That's neat. I haven't heard that one. I like it.
So Eric, when you're doing a backlock, is the lock alloy necessarily matched to the blade?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if I purchase an S110V backlock native and then I purchase an LC200N, I'm not going to find the same lock material?
You may not.
Wow.
Yeah, you look at something like an S90V, a 110V, these are incredibly, hard steels. And because that backlock surface is rubbing against the lock itself, you don't want to cut away the lock. There's also a balance on locks that you don't want them too hard. You start getting 54 on a Rockwell on a lock back, that starts to be its top end limit because you'll start breaking heads off the thing. And so you need a steel that's going to be a softer Rockwell, that's going to be tough, corrosion resistant, but able to work with something like S90V. And so, yeah, it depends. If you're looking at our MagnaCut native versus our S90V native versus our S30V lightweight, yeah, you may find different materials in those locks. We do a lot of testing on that. We usually don't disclose what that material is or what hardness it is, but absolutely every lock we make, you have to consider that surface of the blade and how they match, whether it's the wearing, the galvanic, particularly on corrosion knives. There's right. A lot of factors in there.
So that's an important thing for the viewers to think about. I know a lot of you guys like to buy natives and then you'll take 10 of them apart, put them all in a box and shake it up and build a new knife out of it. Probably ought to be mindful of that. Like I bet a Maximate backlock is different than an LC200N backlock.
Or I bet the MagnaCut salt is being sprinkled around a bunch of G10 scales right now.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
Maximate salt. People are dying to get that Maximate salt. The native is suddenly the coolest knife in the world because it's got Maximate now.
Maximate or MagnaCut?
MagnaCut. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, the MagnaCut, I do want to say that was delayed a little bit. And so thank you, everybody, for the patience on waiting for that one. We brought it to SHOT Show, said we were going to do it, and then it took us a year to get it done. MagnaCut, has its challenges. It's an absolutely wonderful steel. It changed the industry and the world forever, I think. When we looked at the original data sheets and the way that we process it, there were different ways to go about it. I think that if you're a junkie, you probably know that more than one company has brought MagnaCut to the market in different states. They heat treated them different. They processed them different. For us, we wanted to make sure we did it right. And so it really delayed the project, but we feel that we do have it right. Also, with the other components, that added some delays in the project. Because we offer it as a salt, every component in that knife has to be rigorously tested. After, working with it, we found some areas that needed improvement, which delayed the project. But having that said, it is in the market. If you do get one, in my opinion, it's a great representation of a true MagnaCut. A true saw and everything you look for in that knife and that steel.
I've heard anecdotally from more than one knife maker that they find MagnaCut difficult to finish, that it doesn't polish like other steels. Have you noticed that, or do you? I don't know if you want to talk about it. You might not.
But yeah, MagnaCut is its own beast. Whether you're on a bevel grinder with our machining centers, or you're polishing them. Yes, it has had its challenges.
What do you suppose makes it different than the other steels that it would be more difficult to polish? Is it the chemical composition?
Naturally, that's where I would lead to first. Now, what within the chemical composition might make that more difficult? I really don't know. I feel like that's probably a question for Laren. Having that said, though, we feel confident we're getting it down. And so we have made some adjustments and we think we're getting it down. So it has been a challenge.
Someone is saying grain structure. I'm guessing that's probably Sean. Could be.
Yeah, all that is a factor. All of it.
Sure.
Whether your chemistry, your grain structures, even the bevel grinders themselves. There's a big world of wheels. Whether you're in the finishing department using your M3 wheels or whatever brand you use, or you're in your bevel grinders, it's just a huge world. And so I think that you could buy 5 different MagnaCuts from 5 different companies and get 5 different results in their polish and their performance.
Right.
I feel that ours will be among the best.
Possibly the most random question I just randomly thought of. I was thinking about grinding blades. Where does all that steel go when you're grinding all these blades? How do you get rid of all this ground off steel?
Everything is recycled.
Everything's recycled.
Everything's recycled. And so on the grinders, if it's a production grinder, like a CNC grinder, that powder, if you will, is washed away through the coolant. It travels through a pipe to the filter for the coolant system. The filter is separated out into a big lumps of powder. Then we scoop that all into barrels, and that gets recycled. And then for the webbing on all of our steels that's cut from the lasers, all of that stuff gets recycled. So yeah, almost all of the dust is kept and recycled. Even in the finishing department with the air systems we use, we spend a lot of money and effort in our finishing department with our air systems, so that it's a clean department. You don't want to have a dirty finishing department, so that the finishers know what the hell they're looking at. It's really well lit. And all that dust goes into some filters, and we start, cleaning up and recycling that stuff too. And so it's, all of it gets recycled for the most part.
You just touched on something that I think we've talked about before, but it might be a misconception. The coolant that's on the grinders. So are you saying is burnt edges might be not as big of a deal as some people think, since you guys are cooling it while you're cutting?
Burnt edges are a big deal. Don't burn your edge.
Yes.
Yeah, you're retempering it. Usually, when you start seeing that discoloration, and again, I'm sure Sean would know more about this, but you're starting to get up over 200 degrees, and then it's even hard to really know what you're getting to. You start getting it to 300-400 degrees, you're starting to change that temper. Don't burn your knives. For us, we sharpen our knives under coolant. We grind them under coolant. It's not an easy process. Also, in the world of coolant, there's a lot of different coolants. Some of them are better for machines than others. Some of them are better for the steels than others. In fact, we use multiple different coolants throughout our facility. Some of it's green, some of it's white. But having that said, yeah, coolant is critical. Don't burn your edges.
There's an anecdote it's a common refrain in the group about, I buy a Spyderco, I need to sharpen it 2 or 3 times to get rid of the burnt edge. It's sort of an anecdote that's said over and over. And I don't really know what to think of it, because I imagine when you're making a knife, you're not intending to ship a knife with a burnt edge. So I would think you have a way around that. That being said, it probably, I don't know. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I don't remember burnt edges leaving our facility. I'm not saying it's never happened. We make a lot of knives around the world, but
right.
For the most part, all of our edges are sharpened under coolant. If you were to see some discoloration in an edge, I would likely say it would be on the very lower end of that spectrum. If I remember correctly, and I'm just trying to peel through my files in my brain here, I think you hit the high hundreds or 200 when you start getting, or 200 plus when you start getting discoloration. If you are in that range, you're likely okay still. But it's hard to tell how hot it actually got. Like when you go to coat a knife, if you're going to put like DLC on a blade, for example, those coating machines are getting those knives hot. And so, for example, when we do FDE for REC, the flat dark earth knife for River's Edge Cutlery REC, that knife is only able to be done at 204p at this time, because the 204p can take a higher temperature. That's why you're not seeing FDE in other knives. Having that said, I've been kind of teasing this for a little while. We're expanding in our coatings world. And so we're going to be able to bring more steels to the market in the future with more colors without overcooking them. But yes, whenever you see a black knife from Spyderco, particularly a DLC knife, that had to get hot to put that on there, typically over 200 degrees. And so we're confident that those knives should still perform like they should. They didn't get too hot to retemper it, if you will.
When I saw you last summer at Blade Show, you were very excited about coatings. You were like, I'm really getting deep into coatings. So
yes, I love coatings.
You still playing with coatings, or have you nailed down?
I am still playing with coatings. One of the things that I really love about coatings, one, I've been dealing with black knives my whole life. And in the 40 years, because I'm feeling old these days, but in the 40 plus years I've been around coatings, they've just been getting better and better and better. I remember when DLC hit the market, and what DLC, because it's a carbon-based coating, brings you great lubricity. It gives you a dark, consistent color, good wear resistance, and lubricity. And so in steels, you're looking for corrosion resistance, toughness, and edge hardness. And so you're always looking for those three, how hard, how tough, how corrosion resistant. So coatings are the same way. How hard is your coating? Is it going to wear? Is it going to overcook it? Is it consistent? Is it black? Does it have good lubricity? And it's a growing industry, just like steels themselves. And so one of my favorite things recently is the lubricity of coatings. I've been really looking at that heavy. When you go and you cut with a black knife, oftentimes you'll say, gee, it's not cutting as well as my satin. And that's just because that coating doesn't give you the lubricity that a high polish would, like a mirror edge.
Right.
And so like a chrome coating gives you really good lubricity, but it doesn't give you the wear resistance of a DLC. And it doesn't give you the same flat black as a DLC might. And so, yes, I'm already probably disclosing more than I should. But I am into coatings, and we're expanding that. And I'll probably know more, or I'll disclose more probably by the end of the year as far as some of the details on this stuff. But yeah, coatings is on its own renaissance.
People love it. Colors, you add colors to anything and people freak out, because black, cool, There's only so many rec knives. There's so many other color possibilities.
Yeah, and you could do like a powder coating, but it's thick as snot and changes your knife completely. Yeah. And so how do you do something that's microns thick within a color without cooking your knife and giving you lubricity? And so, we're working on some cool stuff.
I just wanted to touch on this while Martin is saying hi. Martin Colombo. He just made me these. I want to show them off because they're really cool.
Oh, wow.
So these are hand painted graffiti.
Wow, that's hand painted.
It's hand painted. It says PM2 P3 on it.
That is
PM2 P3. So I just want to show these off. Thank you again, Martin. These are awesome. So
I agree. That is absolutely gorgeous. I love the tag itself too. I mean that the MPM is and the 2 and the P3. I mean, all that's just awesome. I love it.
For 4 years, we've been talking about maybe changing the name of the group because it's really hard to say. But one thing we like about it is that it's not like all the other groups. So at least it stands out. So we always just end up going in a circle where we're like, should we rename it something simpler? Nah, we'll just keep it.
My theory is it's self-selecting audience of people who see the name and they're either really into it or they're like, I don't want anything to do with that club. All they talk about is PM2s. But when you get here, you find out it's more than that. But you have to at least like, some of the stuff.
Yeah, sure. We just talked about a K2 and an autonomy, and we got some cool stuff besides just the ones you got. But I like the name. I think you picked good ones. I think those are some of the greatest knives ever made by humans.
And before someone says it, we're not changing the name to M2 PM2 P. No, just because there's a military 2, we're not changing the name of the group.
Yeah, before you know it, there'll be a Millie 3. So
right,
that's coming.
No, but we're always working on something new.
It's an eventuality.
Yeah.
Another knife that's been getting a lot of talk in the group lately was a Bowie bladed PM2 prototype was at SHOT Show.
Yep.
And I think a picture even leaked of it. But that knife has been talked about a lot. Is that still just in prototype phase, or does that? You probably don't want to comment on that, but
I don't mind because they already showed it. I mean, I'll throw it out there. Smoky Mountain Knives showed it on one of their videos.
Did they?
It's a beautiful piece. I'm excited for it. The one that they showed was off of our grinders. I know that when you get into buoys, it's a big world. If I had a Mount Rushmore of knives, Jim Bowie might be on there. Like Blackie Collins, Ken Onion, there's some good ones. But buoys, there's 1,000 different ways to do it. And so we'll bring one to the market. It's got a big hollow with a swedge and a fuller. We thought it was fun to do it the way we did. It doesn't mean that it's the king all of buoys. I look at a James Keating, for example, some of the latest ones we've done with the full flat grinds. Man, that's a gorgeous buoy. This is a little different, with its hollow grind and its swedge. But I think for the people that do get it, it's a beautiful piece. One of the things I do like about it, and I'm sure there's images out there, is the grind line really comes out to a crisp right at the tip. If you want a really strong tip, to have those swedges come together and then come all the way to the tip is not only a tremendous challenge in the manufacturing, but it gives you more strength and performance. And so, our grinding department, which I feel is one of the best grinding departments in the world. So if they are watching, hats off to you guys again. But they just did a beautiful job on this knife. So yeah, we're working on it.
That's awesome.
I must say one thing about whatever they grind is the Tonto PM2 you guys do is such a complex shape. It's pretty impressive. And you put a mirror edge on that thing. It is a cool looking knife.
I mean, I can't think of a Tonto that's done better in its grinding. And then, I can sit here and my dad would always say, man who beat on own chest knocks self over backwards. But, I'll pat myself on the back slightly, I guess. But we use a hollow grind that goes to a flat grind at the tip, and then it has that swedge on there. Most knife companies, they just put a flat grind on it and they just cut off the tip. And when you look at the complexity of the symmetry, the bevels, the way that knife is done, I feel in the world of Tontos, it's unmatched. Its complexity is symmetrical. It's hollows, it's flats, it's thicknesses. It's just an absolute gorgeous thing to look at. We are working on a batch right now, so that is chunking through. Blade HQ has been asking one for a while, so thank you, Blade HQ, for your patience. But yeah, we got another batch of those Tonto PM2s coming through now.
That's amazing. I know so many people in the group love it, or are chasing one. They're looking for one. They're definitely showstoppers.
Yeah, they're probably my top 3 or 4 most sought after Spydercos right now. People ask them all the time. Then they find out that they're only from Blade HQ, and they're like, but they don't have them right now. I'm like, just wait.
Yeah, we're trying to get them done. Blade HQ too has been asking for some other models, so hopefully we can get that one done too. We've drawn them up and worked on them. If we can get them done, just imagine a Tonto shaman. Wouldn't that be neat? And so, yeah, there's some cool stuff that we've played with.
Wow. Hasn't Blade HQ done every knife yet? Is there anything left you guys haven't done?
They're a fun partner to work with.
They are pumping out exclusive. One thing I really like about the fact that they do lesser known exclusive is it brings like a whole new audience to a lot of knives. I think that people didn't know they could like until they saw the Blade HQ version of it.
Absolutely. I love when they pick a discontinued and then pull it up. I love it.
The Dodo, one of my favorite, I don't own it anymore, but releases that was like came back from the dead. I was so excited about the Jade Dodo.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to make it the Blade HQ show, but one of the things I do like about Blade HQ is their overall selection. When I'm doing my own research on knives, I find myself on their website oftentimes just because they have it all and they give good information. And so, again, they've just been a wonderful partner to work with.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a couple of representatives from their company that are in the group.
Oh, cool. Welcome.
So, Eric, a knife that Tom and I both like a lot, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, is the Sage Lightweight. Perhaps one of the better pivots that I've ever used on any knife, with the tinitride coating on that M4 exclusive. This is a knife that I love to carry. You can see the blade is a little schmutzy because this one ends up in my pocket a lot. It's not really a lightweight though, is it? Because it's got full liners.
Yep.
Kind of a misleading name, but when we talk about it, Tom and I, to other people, they're always like, I don't know if I like those lightweights. We'll tell them full liner, and then they're excited again. But can you tell us a little bit about this knife?
Yeah, I would love to. With the full liners and the thickness of the bevel or the thickness of the blade itself, that knife has wonderful balance. When we talk about making lightweights and making them side locks, whether it's a compression or a liner lock, there's a lot of engineering that goes into that so that it doesn't push the knife apart. Really hats off to the Taiwanese for being able to engineer that knife that can last the test of time, get the solid lockups, the solid close, not push itself apart. When it comes to the smooth action, I tend to agree with you. Right now, the Taiwanese are making some of the smoothest knives in the world. And, I feel they're doing it without ball bearings too. I think about the IKBS system or the washers with the inserted ball bearings. Right now they're able to just do that with a bushing. A few years back, this is pre-pandemic, we were working with the factory and we said, our paramilitary models have better action than your compression locks. And we think that it's hurting the market itself. It's hurting the reputation of the compression lock. It's hurting the sales of the knives. We need to work on better action with our compression locks. And I think they saw that as a challenge and they just crushed it. When you look at a compression lock right now coming out of Taiwan, with their precision bushing system and the way they polish and rework things, its action is almost unmatched.
Yeah.
The U.S. factory is doing a wonderful job with our bushings as well. But, again, hats off to the Taiwanese for taking on that challenge and just crushing it, really. I mean, also a lot of screw machine parts and smaller hardware comes from Taiwan.
Yeah.
I believe that Taiwan, when it comes to hardware, is, one of the kings of the world. When you look at their custom pivots, their screws, their hardware in general, I visited some screw machine shops out there. They're some of the best I've ever seen, kind of like their chip building. And so they're working with the best, and it's an amazing execution. So, good hats off to those guys and good observation.
Will we see more Sage lightweights?
Yes, we are working on more. I guess I'll throw one out there. We're working on a burnt orange Rex 121.
Oh man. Oh God. You guys want to see a fun steel to sharpen? Rex one, I have some, and it's a hoot.
So you know those steel charts that have like all the little dots? Rex 121's like over here.
Right.
Yeah.
Rex.
Yeah, it's up there.
I'm gonna buy one for every finger.
Yeah, Rex 121's in its own ballpark, but I don't know if it's its own ballpark completely. Maximet and 15V, I feel, are kind of in that same field as well. But you're right. When you're looking at all those dots, that one's way up there.
Yeah. Burnt orange Rex 121 Sage 5 lightweight. You guys heard it here. Yeah.
Still a ways out there.
Crowd pleaser.
I must say the way that you guys have adapted to the ravenous online audience with how you guys announce releases is good. I remember like a few years ago, like the catalog came out and the Python was in there, and it didn't drop for like a year. But now the reveals come out, and it's really nice to like not put too much stuff out there that people are excited for, but these little teasers I'm not going to complain about, because that is a nice one. But the reveals are great. I love them every single time they come out. I screenshot every single page and put it on Instagram, and everyone goes berserk for whatever's new.
Yeah, it's been a fun process. We were getting so many complaints that we didn't want to, see a catalog on January and wait for December to get the damn thing, if you will. So the reveal program came out. One of the side notes to that too is we number them. I think we're on to like 13 or 14. We're getting up there. I'm a comic book fan. I used to collect comic books when I was a kid. I still like Superman. I think he's the greatest superhero of all time. But having that said, that's one of the reasons we number them, is that you could have a lineage of them. So we don't have a spring, summer, fall. We number them, and through the years, you'll have a famous one like a New Mutants number 87. You'll have a Spyderco reveal 19. That was when the big one came out. So that's some of the fun for the reveal.
I look forward to it myself. Absolutely.
Well, Jason.
Yes, Tom.
Do you want to touch on Blade Show? Maybe see if there's anyone else that wants to talk to Eric, where they should go before we take off, before we
Blade Show's the next. Yeah, Blade Show Atlanta is the next big show. Will you guys be in the same location?
Same location. Yep. I'm also working Eugene, Oregon Knife Collectors Club. I do that every year, have since I was a kid. So I'll be there next week. And
it's next weekend.
If you're around, come by and say hi. For me, it's one of my favorite shows. It's where I met Almar and Bob Lum and Chuck Buck, and met the Hawks for the first time. And man, there are some fun people. So if you're in the Oregon area, I would say stop by the Oregon Knife Collectors Club. It's a fun one.
Drew, I'm driving down. Drive down to Eugene next Saturday morning.
I'm jealous. I wish I could go. I can't make it, but you guys have fun without me. But Eric, I will definitely see you in Atlanta. I'm going to be there with bells on.
Right. Right on. Where are the bells?
They're over there. It's a vest.
But yeah, I look forward to hanging with you too. It's always fun seeing either one of you guys. I usually see you at Blade and you at Eugene, and I can't wait to see you guys in person. I'm expecting Sean to show up at Eugene too, knowing him. If you're a Sean Houston fan. I remember the first time I met Almar, I knew what he looked like, but I had never met him, and he was walking around Eugene, and I just walked the aisles until I found him, reached out my hand and said, "Hi, I'm Eric Glesser. I'd like to meet you." And so, I'm expecting Sean Houston will likely be doing the same as you, Thomas. And if you're showing up, it's a fun show to just walk around and reach out your hand and say, "Pleased to meet you," because there's some cool people there.
When I went in April 2019, I don't know how I grew up in Eugene and didn't know this was a show, because I've been into knives for most of my life. So someone told me there's a big knife show. I'm sure Spyderco will be there. I'm like, yeah, in Eugene. Okay. And so I drove down there. I walked up and down every single row of the Lane County Convention Center. Like, I didn't see him. but everyone has tables, so there's no big booth. You can't see a big Spyderco sign. I was leaving and I saw you. I was like so bummed out. I didn't think you guys were there, and I saw you, and I latched on as much as I possibly could before you had to shoo me away. But great experience.
Prototype.
I like him. Yeah. So Eric at that show actually gave me a Para 3 lightweight prototype, which was kind of the most important knife in my collection, and I'll never ever lose it or sell it or anything.
And I've never given away a prototype. You're the only one I've ever done that with.
So that was one of the most important days of my life in the knife hobby, about how stuff's evolved. That event inspired this group, inspired me to keep on going, inspired everything. So this show is important, and it's a really cool place to talk to Eric because it's a lot less busy than Blade Show.
Yeah, this year my son's working it with me. He's 14. If I can play my cards right, he'll be the third generation. And so, yeah, he'll be standing behind the table talking knife with me if you show up.
That's awesome.
That's great.
I love it. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up, Tom. It's been an hour 15. Eric's been generous with his time. He's probably got knives to make.
Okay, so now we have to go rewatch this episode and write down all the secrets that he revealed. And don't talk about him.
Everything don't get me in trouble. I'm sure the sales department's going to.
Don't tell anybody other than
you really say that? So.
I don't think you get in too much trouble. It was okay.
All right.
But Eric, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you. We appreciate you guys at the factory. Thank you for all you do, and for continuing to make these awesome knives for us to enjoy and play with.
And thank you to everybody who supports us. We couldn't do this without you guys. And so thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. For Eric Glesser and Tom Moore, I'm Jason Beatty. Thanks for watching the show. Catch us this weekend. Tom and I will probably be back Saturday night, and we'll probably spend most of the time talking about what we talked about tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.